Thank you, John, and good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you all virtually and to kick off today's summit as we embark on what is going to be a huge year for transportation electrification and society-wide decarbonization in California. As you know, we at CARB are charged with protecting public health by regulating air pollution in California, and we lead the state's actions to combat climate change. As we move into this critical decade for climate policy, we are committed to ensuring that our policies simultaneously improve health and quality of life in communities that are disproportionately impacted by the negative impacts of air pollution and climate change. And a clean transportation sector is key to achieving all of these goals, and we need to move as quickly as possible toward a zero-emission transportation future. That means both electrifying vehicles and supporting sustainable development strategies that promote mobility while allowing people to spend less time on driving. 2022 is going to be a critical year. We're setting an extensive strategy to meet stringent federal air quality standards in regions of the state that continue to experience significant pollution. We're developing the state's climate action plan to achieve carbon neutrality by 2045 or sooner. We are setting policies in place that will transform transportation and benefit communities over the next 2 decades. And we are making historic investments in zero-emission transportation. All of this work forms a comprehensive mobile source strategy that will drive emissions reductions in the coming decades. And the pillars of this strategy are funding support for this significant transition and aggressive regulatory action. Last November, CARB approved our 2021 funding plan for clean transportation investments, which will invest $1.5 billion to increase access to zero-emission vehicles and clean mobility options. And the plan has a major equity focus. At least 60% of the investments are targeted to benefit low-income Californians and communities disproportionately burdened by pollution. This is by far CARB's largest annual clean transportation investment to date, and it will support projects including incentives and loan assistance to help low-income Californians buy new or used zero-emission vehicles, including scrapping cars for those who want to upgrade from an old, dirty model. Community-based projects in impacted communities to increase mobility and access to zero-emission transportation, funding for zero-emission drayage trucks with a focus on small fleets and individual truck owners who are most in need of assistance for this transition, for zero-emission school buses and zero-emission transit buses. The plan also includes key outreach, technical assistance, and transportation needs assessment funding to ensure that the priority populations targeted for these investments are well equipped to access funding. And this funding plan is part of Governor Newsom's coordinated multi-agency, multi-year ZEV investment strategy. As John highlighted, this is so exciting for the future of California and the nation. The investments that CARB are administering is complemented by zero-emission transportation investments by the Energy Commission, the California State Transportation Agency, and the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. And the governor is doubling down on these investments from the 2021 budget in his proposed 2022 budget, as John mentioned, with an additional $6 billion to accelerate the equitable transition to ZEVs beyond the $4 billion in last year's ZEV package for a total investment of $10 billion. The proposed budget includes $419 million to support existing sustainable community-based transportation equity projects that expand clean transportation options, reducing vehicle miles traveled and increasing access to zero-emission mobility in low-income communities. And we anticipate that these funds could support over 100 communities. These locally driven projects continue CARB's efforts to address critical mobility needs identified by community-based organizations and residents. Building on the $250 million provided in the 2021 ZEV package to take Clean Cars for All statewide, The 2022 proposal lays out an additional $256 million that will continue to support low-income consumer purchases of cleaner technology and will provide assistance to more than 100,000 low-income families through a range of programs. The proposed investments in the medium and heavy-duty and off-road sectors include $545 million to support the deployment of 1,000 drayage trucks and 1,700 transit buses, reducing heavy-duty vehicle pollution and accelerating electrification by focusing on sources that pose particularly high exposure risks to communities. An additional $600 million to support zero-emission clean trucks, buses, and off-road equipment across a range of vehicle classes, including construction and agriculture, and $250 million targeted to port electrification, leveraging both batteries and fuel cells and continuing our work to clean the air in port-adjacent communities. These investments work in concert with our clean vehicle regulations to ensure that California meets its equity, clean air, and climate goals. And the regulatory strategy is absolutely critical to making this transition as quickly as possible. This year, we set the course to achieve Governor Newsom's goal of 100% zero-emission new car sales in 2035. To achieve this, we're in the process of adopting our Advanced Clean Cars 2 regulation, which will require increasing percentages of zero-emission vehicles to be sold in California. In that regulation, we're putting particular emphasis on incorporating equity and environmental considerations, such as requiring continued emissions reductions in conventional vehicles, including ZEV technology requirements that will help drive down vehicle costs and make ZEVs more usable for all communities, and encouraging automakers to place ZEVs in community car sharing services, retain used ZEVs in the California market for equity programs, and sell lower priced vehicles. In addition, ACC2 will include provisions to improve electric vehicle durability and value for all consumers, including in the used car market. Cleaning up medium and heavy duty vehicles is particularly important for addressing pollution burdens in our frontline communities near ports, along freeways, and near the growing warehouse industry. Governor Newsom's ZEV executive order set a target of 100% clean trucks on California's roads by 2045 where feasible. Our first of its kind advanced clean fleets regulation that the board adopted in 2020 will transform the commercial and freight truck population. And as a result of this regulation, we expect that over 300,000 zero-emission trucks will be sold into California by 2035. In addition to the Advanced Clean Trucks rule, we are currently developing our complementary Advanced Clean Fleets regulation that would put an end to combustion truck sales in California by 2040. Even as we accelerate the transition to heavy-duty zero-emission technologies, we also want to be sure that combustion trucks are maintaining their emissions control systems, which is critical for protecting our most vulnerable communities. To that end, in December, we passed a comprehensive smog check program for heavy-duty trucks in the state of California. And we're expecting significant NOx reductions from that effort. The actions we take here will have ramifications beyond California, particularly through our partnerships with other states on clean air standards and clean vehicle regulations. We're very excited that 5 other states, Washington, Oregon, New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, have also adopted zero-emission truck sales requirements in the last few months. This will be hugely important to driving ZEV uptake. Together with our state partners, our actions in California will effectively be sending market signals to 20% of the national medium and heavy-duty ZEV market. And of course, as John mentioned, the exciting work of our federal government partners. The Biden administration executive order on zero-emission cars, US EPA's work on new federal greenhouse gas emission standards for vehicles, and the funding opportunities of the Infrastructure Investment and Job Act, and hopefully the Build Back Better legislation being considered by Congress, will all help set the US on the road to zero. And US EPA's proposed restoration of California's authority on greenhouse gas emission and zero-emission vehicle standards will allow us to further the path towards a clean transportation future for all our state, federal, and international partners. We have many ambitious goals for our climate, for the environment, for our economy, and most importantly, for our communities. And there's a lot of work ahead. To succeed, we'll be working with our sister agencies, local government community stakeholders, industry, the academic community, and the federal government. I look forward to continuing this essential and aggressive transition to zero emission with all of you. Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to the discussion at today's summit.
Now is the time to act. That's why we've created a blueprint, working for a future where carbon-free resources power the economy. From homes and businesses to cars, trucks, and mass transit. We're a leader in the U.S. in clean energy, integrating solar, wind, and storage throughout the grid. We're accelerating the move to zero carbon transportation, working to put 7.9 million zero-emission vehicles on California's roads by 2030. Working to keep electricity affordable, reducing air pollution in disadvantaged communities, working to strengthen communities' resilience to climate change, transforming the way market leaders across the globe manage energy through advanced analytics, helping global customers quantify energy risk, reduce carbon footprints, and meet sustainability goals. Edison International, leading the charge to power a cleaner, brighter future for everyone.